Hello, y'all, and welcome back to the channel. Marquita here. So I'm gonna be completely honest. This is take three of this particular video because I'm really trying to figure out how to best say what I need to say and explain it, but not make it super long. The last video I made, I think, was like 30 minutes, like the last take that I took. So I'm gonna try and keep it a little bit shorter than that, but no guarantees. And so we'll see which final product you guys end up with. But I think it is an important conversation to have to try and get an understanding of different viewpoints and, just in general things going on. So, what I'm going to be talking about is, the DEI rollbacks, particularly at Target, but just in general, my opinion on that, and also giving perspective from other viewpoints about that, and also my choice in how I plan to proceed as it pertains to that. So let's go ahead and get into it. But before I do, please be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for all those who have recently subscribed. I do see those numbers going up. I appreciate you. And also feel free to comment down below. I do respond to the comments. I do read the comments. So feel free to comment down below, particularly on this issue, and let me know your thoughts, where you stand, and kind of just your feelings on everything about it. So when it comes to the DEI rollback, I think, there are certain places that we saw announcing that they were, rolling back their policies and whatnot. And we really didn't bat an eye. Like, people weren't surprised and they weren't really up in arms. It was just kind of like, dang, that sucks. But when Target did that, when Target came out and announced, like, that they were rolling back their DEI policies, everybody lost it. And so I think, one, we should ask ourselves, why are we holding Target to this higher standard compared to, let's just say, their probably biggest competitor, Walmart? When Walmart rolled back their DEI, now I already have an answer to that, but just food for thought. Like, why is it that we want to hold one place more accountable than another? Because with Walmart, I don't think anybody was surprised, given, if you know about the Walton family, you understand, they're very conservative. They have very conservative so-called Christian values. And I put that in parentheses because while that might be their actual family practice, as someone who worked there when I was in college, just, as a part-time college student, I wasn't trying to support a family or anything off of it. But as someone who worked there, I can say the message that they present to the world and then what it's like to actually work for the company are two different things. That's how I feel about Walmart. I really don't shop at Walmart way before any of this DEI stuff, just because the shopping experience, the environment, the ambiance, it's not to my liking, my preference. And also the price difference between them and Target is not that big of a difference to where I would say, oh, I'm gonna shop at Walmart because it's cheaper. My point in saying all that is to say that, given Walmart's reputation when it comes to certain things, I don't think we were surprised that they rolled back their policies. But when we came to Target, everybody really felt some kind of way when Target said we're pulling back. And I just wonder, why is it that we hold Target to a certain standard and we don't hold Walmart to that same standard? Because they're both equally big box stores that get quite a bit of most people's money. Because if you're in a small town, chances are you just have Walmart, so they're getting a lot of your money. And if you're in a bigger city, you may have both, or you have a lot of Targets. Like where I'm at, really, there's more Targets than Walmarts in the vicinity. So either way, both stores are getting a large amount of money from a big group of people. And so we should hold them equally accountable, regardless of the history of the stores and the owners and all of that. We should hold them both accountable because, to me, they're on the same level in terms of the type of store and the magnitude of who they are. But Target, I think, I wonder, why is it that we are holding them to this higher standard? Is it because they actually spoke out and said, hey, we're committed to this and we plan to do XYZ? And now it seems like they're kind of reneging on what they actually said. Whereas Walmart just kind of said, hey, we're going to put these policies in place because that's what's going on right now. So we're going to do that and we're doing it. Whereas Target actually kind of made it a big deal to say, we're going to do this. We're committed to getting more brands. We're doing this and doing that. And honestly, I don't remember Walmart really coming out and saying, other than saying we now have these policies in place, breaking it down and making it like a big deal to say, this is by putting these policies in place, these are the changes you're going to see within our stores or within our company. Target actually went out on a limb and was like, not only are we putting these policies in place, but here's what that looks like. This is what it means for us to do that. And they were doing it. They did follow. They added a lot more um, brands that were from people of color. And I say people of color because it wasn't just black brands, it was black brands. You saw Hispanic brands. You saw brands that maybe were only on e-commerce sites for a while. They had their own site and that's it. Or brands that maybe weren't even in any store, they may have um and so they came up, and so they did hold true to that, and they also pledged a certain amount of money that they were supposed to be giving or investing towards, black businesses and small businesses and all that. And one thing I think we need to remember, or we need to know, is that that had a timeline. It was not a forever and always thing. They actually said when they initially put it in place, we're going to do this between now and, I want to say it was like either this year or 2026, like, or 2026. That was the timeline that they said we're going to invest X amount of money in this particular initiative. So it was something that was going to end anyway, regardless of what's going on right now. So another thing to keep in mind is that they rebranded or renamed what was their DEI stuff. It's now called Belongings, which some former employees have said that that was what it was called before, like it became whatever it was, and now they just kind of renamed it, rebranded it. And Target even explains that on their website, what they're doing and what they're changing and what that means and what things that are getting cut or they're going to stop doing that they did under the previous policy and all of that, which one included, I think, like reporting to a certain particular group, reporting some data or whatever. So it was things like that. But all of those specifics are listed. So again, just as they stepped out when they uh, added the policies and said, this is what this looks like, they are being transparent to say, now that we're rolling them back, this is what that looks like. And I think people didn't take the time or haven't taken the time to actually look at it and see, well, what exactly does you rolling these policies back look like? What does that mean? And so there has become a kind of I say, three different perspectives on how to handle this situation. So there are people who are all for completely boycotting Target, like not spending any money for any reason there. There are people who are saying let's do targeted, no pun intended, shopping, meaning that you focus on buying those brands that would have fallen under the DEI label. So brands by people from the LGBTQTIA plus community, from the black community, from the Hispanic community, any brands, like Middle Eastern, Indian, whatnot, any minority brands that have shelf space in Target. Those are the people. The Future Collective was also another um, piece of that came along with the DEI policies and their commitment to getting more diversity in their stores when it comes to brands and designers and all of that. Because the Future Collective was not just for Black designers; it was for people who would be basically considered minorities in the fashion industry in the field, which pretty much everybody other than white people. Those are the things that they're still doing. And that's the thing that I think people need to stop and think about or realize and be like, okay, even though they're rolling back the paper policy, it's not written down anywhere saying this is what we're doing, all that. What is actually happening in the stores? Like Target had black brands before, and I don't think they're going to cut those brands just because of the policy rolling back. However, what could happen, and this is where my plan of action comes in, is that do I plan to still shop at Target? Yes. Why do I plan to still shop at Target? Because I plan to do targeted shopping. And what that means is I am in the category of planning to focus on purchasing from the black brands, the small businesses, that type of thing, because that's where my dollars go anyway, most of the time. Like when I really sat back and thought about the last few purchases that I made from Target in terms of major purchases outside of a few like general like household things or whatnot, It was from either the special collections, which were almost always some form of minority, whether it be, like, for example, the last clothing I bought was from the Blogilates collection. The designer, Cassie, or Casey, I'm not sure how you pronounce her name, she's Asian and she's a woman. Both of those fall under DEI. Both of those fall under minorities. And that's the last stuff I purchased from there was from her collection. And prior to that, I purchased some Future Collective items, and also the Black History Month stuff is out. I do plan on picking a few of those pieces up as well, or some items from that collection. So that's what I mainly buy from there anyway. And then when it comes to other items like hair care, I use Camille Rose. That is another Black owned minority brand there, and I use that. That's what I'm buying when I'm buying my, beauty products. And I will be trying to do, that's what I plan on purchasing next. That is a newer brand that's recently there, also Black woman brand. So, and there's another like body care, or like I think it's she has scrubs or lotions or something. Um I think it's called Glam or something like that. I did see that at my store. I plan on trying one of those. Also, woman, Black owned, as well. So those are things that I plan on doing. I actually came across another item, a food item that I plan on purchasing more of, that I have purchased and plan on purchasing more of. And I'm going to expose that and talk about that in a different video when I go through like brands and Black owned brands and things. But I just wanted to know, like, that's what I'm doing. And the reason why I'm sticking to targeted shopping as opposed to a full out boycotting Target is because those brands have shelf space. To get and maintain shelf space, you have to sell. And it doesn't matter if you are a Black owned brand or whatever brand. If a product or a brand does not sell, they lose the shelf space. That's just how that works. That's retail. And we have been asking and begging for our brands to be available, for minority brands, for more choices for Black and brown people to be on the shelves. And now that it's here, if we don't support it, they're going to lose that shelf space and we're back to where we started. Now, a lot of people say, well, the alternative to that is to order from those brands, online directly from their website, which is definitely an option. And I would say if you're doing a full on store boycott, please do make sure that you support the brands online. But the thing to remember is, like I said, number one, shelf space is based on sales. If the product or brand is not selling, it will lose shelf space because they can put something else in there that will sell. So if your product is just sitting there and nobody's buying it, Target's not making money. And neither is the brand because the product's not moving. When Target makes these contracts, they pay those people up front, but the people also get, or those brands, and they also get a portion of the sales when you buy the stuff out the store. But really, Target's just getting their money back because I know people are saying, I don't want to give Target my money. Well, I get that, but you're really just paying them back for the money that they've already paid that brand or that person to, as part of the contract to put their things in the store. The other thing I think people need to realize, a lot of people saying they should just pull their stuff off the shelf. They should just go back to the online store and we'll shop there. Here's the thing. What people do not realize, and people fail to realize when it comes to business, is that by making the deals, getting the contracts with these big box stores, it relieves some of the financial pressure off of these small businesses and brands. They no longer have to pay for the warehouse space. They no longer have to pay for a distribution team. Those are things that they have to have when they're just using their e-commerce, and they're the ones shipping out your things. They're the ones packaging your items. They're the ones having to promote and market and all that. They're paying for all of those things. So if we were supporting them enough to the point that they can make the kind of money that they make by being in a big box store, they wouldn't be trying to get in a big box store. That's the goal for a lot of these companies. And not only that, but it also provides more access and more exposure, because there are some brands I found out about just from seeing them on the shelf. I didn't know about them prior to them being on the shelf in Target. So that's another thing, that it gives more exposure for people who might just walk in the store and see it and want to try it because they realize, like, oh, this might work on my hair, or this might be some good skincare for me, or whatever the product is. So those are ways that being in a big box store is beneficial to the brands. And even the brands are asking for you to please still purchase their items out of the store. But they do understand, why you want to do the boycott. Now, just 1 month, like if people just said, we're just going to boycott for the month of February, then that would be okay. That's not going to really, they're going to hurt a little bit, but it's not going to be horrible. But if you do a long-term boycott, it is going to impact the brands more than it's going to impact Target. Will Target take a hit? Absolutely. They already are taking a hit, especially if you look at their stocks. But they can recover, and they will recover eventually. But these brands, they can't bounce back the same way Target can, or Walmart, or any of the big box stores. So I think that's something else to keep in mind, because we don't want to hurt the brands. What we want is for Target to hurt. We want Target to understand that these are the brands that we want to see. These are the things we want to see. We don't appreciate you reneging on what you told us you were going to do, all because of political pressure. And speaking of that, if you're not aware, or you're wondering, where did the rollbacks start coming from? Because seemingly it was like all of a sudden all these announcements started coming. It came from Trump's executive order. Now, mind you, his original order was for federal employees only. On day one, he signed that executive order that put anybody who was a DEI hire or working within that realm on leave if they were a federal worker. Then he, in addition to that, that is where this comes into play with the retail environment. He said that with that order, he basically said that the DEI policies and all of that, just like affirmative action, all of that stuff is illegal, because it's like basically reverse discrimination. So it's like discrimination against white people, essentially. And so that is where the DEI piece comes in, because he wanted to launch an investigation into certain entities, like if you fell in certain categories, which included colleges that had endowments of, I think, $1 billion or more, if they had nonprofits, Fortune 500 companies, which is where your retail people come in. So, like certain things, he wanted investigated if they still had these policies in place. And if it was found that they did, then that would open them up where employees could sue for discrimination. Just like if, when affirmative action was there, if let's say there was something that was done that went against you simply because you were a woman, or because you were a person of color, or because you were part of, the gay community, or because you were disabled, all of those things, if you were to file a lawsuit, that's where things like affirmative action came in, or that's where things like DEI came in. And so now he's reversing that to say, basically, if you feel like you white and you didn't get a job, or you didn't get a promotion or whatever, and a person of color, or somebody who fell under the DEI category, whether it be if you're a man and a woman got it over you, regardless of her race, um, you could sue and say that was discrimination. Like they gave it to Sally because Sally's a woman, So, and that's what the stores were looking at. And some of them were rolling it back because they don't want to be open to that. And even though it's not official, because the executive order is not a law, it has to go through Congress, but they don't want to deal with that. But then there were other companies that said, we don't care what you do, we standing on business. And that was places like Apple and Ulta and Sephora. So I just want to throw that out there for those who are looking for alternatives for your beauty and skincare needs. Ulta and Sephora are two. Costco's a big one that's also going around. BJ's. So there are places you can still go and get what you need outside of Walmart and Target. But going back to the original thing is, why are we not holding everybody to the same level of accountability? Because shouldn't DEI be everywhere? Shouldn't every store have some kind of policies in place, regardless of whether they said it or, made a big deal about having them or not? So why are we just focusing on this one place that we're going to like tear down? And the other thing that I just thought about is like, what is the negative side of this? It's like, this can make stores in the future, because we hope that this situation is temporary, at the most a 4-year situation that we're dealing with. And when this administration goes out, gratefully, somebody else will come in with some good sense and fix it the same way he came in and reversed a bunch of stuff. Hopefully somebody else will come in and put things back that makes a little bit more sense. So after that 4 years, you know, if companies want to try and do something else, similar, or reenact some policies like that, could discourage people from doing that because they're going to say, well, when we tried to stand by you, look what you did to us when we kind of went back. And I'm not saying, I mean, it could be, you could look at it both ways. You could say, well, you should have stood on business like some of the other companies. Or you could say, well, then that makes me question, like, were you sincere? And that's what some people are coming from. They're saying, were you sincere because you were so quick to roll it back? So there's so many different opinions out there. But the other piece I want to remind people of is not only is it you have the straight boycotting, meaning not going at all. Then you have the targeted shoppers where you're focusing your dollars on those particular brands, on the certain brands that fall in the DEI category. And then you have people who are just like, I'm going to continue doing what I was doing before. Forget this. Now, there are a couple reasons or a couple of subcategories in that. Now, some of that is because people just feel like it's not going to make a difference in the long haul. And then there are other people who are not able to fully do that even if they wanted to. Because I think back to my hometown, only has a Walmart. And on top of that, we have 4 other grocery stores. So even if people wanted to boycott Walmart, they kind of can't. And that's the reality for a lot of small towns or small cities or rural areas is they may only have that Walmart. So they still have to go there. And I think that's part of the problem is that Walmart knows that and they know that they still kind of hold your power unless you have the money to be able to, outsource, maybe order your things online or travel to somewhere else where you do have more options, or if you're in an area that does have a lot of local options, then that's something else too. But the only thing with local options, a lot of times they're a little bit more expensive, which you, again, if you have the money to do that, no problem. But for some people, Walmart is simply just a financial choice. It's not that they think it's the best place in the world. It's not that they wouldn't rather have maybe some local items or, something from somewhere else, but it's the only option that they can either afford or access. So that's something to keep in mind too. And for people who are in that situation, and you still feel like I want to show that I'm not okay with what's going on, but I can't afford or I just literally can't not shop at these places or I can't do a boycott, you can also write letters to your elected officials. You can write letters to the corporate office or send emails, whatever works. So you can still make your voice heard without having to do the boycott. And I think that's another thing someone brought up in a group that I'm in on Facebook in the Black Girls Love Target group, that there are people with disabilities. So some people need those pickup services or delivery services that Target and Walmart offer. So there are a lot of reasons why people can't just say, I'm not going to shop at Target anymore, or I'm going to go to Costco as opposed to Walmart or Sam's Club. Because if you didn't know, Sam's Club is also part of Walmart. So if you boycott Walmart, just remember Sam's Club is part of that too. Personally, I prefer BJ's anyway as my clubhouse of choice. Um, it's one is very convenient to me. Two, I find I've had memberships to all 3, Costco, Sam's, and BJ's, and I found that majority of what I needed or wanted is at BJ's in terms of things I'm gonna buy in bulk anyway. Price wise, it's still decent. Sam's is okay. I've went in there. I got they do have a few things like the Clearly Canadian that I love in the case. So, there are some things there that I do like that they offer. But if you're looking at all 3, I have gotten the most value out of BJ's, and that's who I'm sticking with anyway. So, same thing, but everybody doesn't have access to a Costco. Sam's may be the only club store that they have, and club stores might be the best option for their family needs or their household needs. So, these are all things to take into consideration when you're hollering boycott, or if you're judging somebody for still shopping, which you shouldn't be anyway, for still shopping in these stores that we're trying to boycott. And we're back at 30 minutes. I'm looking at this video. But last but not least, I just want to say that I've seen comparisons to the Montgomery bus boycott in terms of comparing that to boycotting Target and the impact that it had. And the only thing that I want to say about that is it's not quite the same. Similar, but not the same. And the reason being is in that boycott, you had 2 entities, 2 parties. You had the riders, the black riders, and you had the bus company. The object of the boycott was to impact the bus company financially so that they would change their policies and make things more fair. So when the riders stopped riding, over a course of time, the company lost enough money to where they said, okay, we can't keep going like this. We're going to have to do something to get these people back on our buses. And that changed what needed to be changed. Now, with the Target situation, while yes, Target will take a hit, they are taking a hit, their stocks are taking a hit. And I think that really came so much from the LGBTQTIA plus backlash, because there's been a lot of issues with that. They are really the reason why that stock is crashing right now and why things are down, because that was the first group that got impacted really heavily. So they've been in this a little bit longer when it comes to fighting against kind of getting things removed or whatnot, their representation uh, decreased there. So other than that, with the Target one, we are going to hurt the brands because it's not just Target and the consumer, which is us. When we boycott Target altogether, yes, Target will lose money, but guess what? So will those brands. And eventually they're going to lose their shelf space because they're not going to be selling. So Target, when they have new products trying to come in and they're like, oh, we need some space. Where are we going to put this new thing? They're going to say, oh, well, this Camille Rose isn't selling anymore. We can go ahead and get rid of that. Let's replace, Camille Rose with whatever else the item is. So that is what we don't want to happen. And that unfortunately is what could happen if this becomes like a long-term thing and they lose enough money and people aren't buying those products off the shelf. So that's one of the reasons why I am more for targeted shopping as opposed to completely boycotting. And I have found other options for some household items because that's really the main thing where I was like, I don't know too many black owned things in that. Like for skincare and beauty, I'm good. Like I can get that from anywhere. But when it comes to the food and household, that's where I was kind of looking. But I found a few replacements. And like I said, I'll share those in a different video. But those are my thoughts on it. That's my opinion. That's where I stand on it. But like I said, you do what's best for you. If you feel like doing a full boycott is what you need to do to get your point across, then by all means, please do that. Just remember to support those brands on their online sites. Um, if targeted shopping works for you, do that. Hey, I'm in that same crowd. And if you can't physically do that because, again, financially, or maybe you just don't have the option to because that's the only store that you have to get what you need, then consider other alternatives for speaking out and letting it be known that you still don't support or approve what's happening. So just keep those things in mind. Please try not to judge people for their choices because you never know why they are making those choices. And let's hopefully uh, be able to come to some resolution and get the results that we want, which is for the companies to still honor these policies, whether they're on paper or not. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind is that Target can still continue to practice whatever it was that they were practicing without it being written down. And so I think we need to let time tell us whether or not they were really about their life or if they were just jumping on the train to keep our black dollars. Either way, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.